Welcome to the Guntersville Grass Roots Podcast. It's about a little past the second week of April of 2025. The wind's still blowing on Guntersville. Trey is over at a mud hole in Mississippi fishing an open, Columbus, Tom Bigby Waterway. And today, I have a special guest in here with me, Bass Pro Tour local now, Jacob Wall. Jacob, thanks for coming. Yeah. Although, I have to say, I did bribe him, sort of. Jacob caught one of my Bass Cash bash tags last week.
Yeah,
something
it was
like that.
A few days ago.
A few days ago. Mm-hmm. And he was actually on my list of people to call to say, hey, would you be interested in coming in? And then I had leverage. So I said, hey, you want your $500? Come see me. So anyway.
Was it leverage, or was it just that was a reminder to get me in here? It was
a little bit of both. I'll call it divine intervention. It was just meant to be.
It worked out.
It just worked out. So I appreciate you coming. You just finished Redcrest. Had a pretty good finish, right?
Yeah. No, I was just outside the top 10, ended up in 14th there.
14th,
yeah, which, I mean, anytime you fish that much pressure on your home lake, it could go one of two ways. It could either go real good or it could go real bad. A lot of history fishing at your home lake, and so it can be a challenge sometimes. I mean, history can be really good, but it can also be a detriment because you can end up running around and just fishing things that you've caught fish on in the past rather than fishing in the exact moment of what's going on there. So 14th, I'm pretty happy with. I mean, it definitely wasn't a win, but it was not a bomb of an event by any means. So.
Right. I saw Andrew Nordby said something along that. He said he had too much history and it ended up biting him.
Yeah, it can be hard, man, because you just things are firing. You're like, well, what about this? What about that? Should I try over here? And before you know it, your day's gone, And
then you get to factor in the wind.
Oh, yeah.
That was 100% a factor on everything this year.
Oh my gosh. It makes navigating the lake hard. It makes moving from place to place, take you longer. It can really be a challenge. Yeah. It ruined areas for me. Like I had found some fish in practice fishing more, out off the bank, and the wind it can blow so hard that you can't accurately sit there and target those fish and do what you need to do in order to get those fish to bite. I mean, your boat's sitting there, your trolling motor's coming out of the water. It's just unproductive. You might as well get the heck out of there and go find them somewhere else.
Were you finding a lot of pre-spawn fish then?
Yeah, mostly pre-spawn, just kind of staging fish. I was catching them from anywhere from like 10 to, well, when practice started, I was catching them from like 8 to 12. Kind of on like secondary stuff like road beds and little like drop offs where it would lead into a flatter area, focusing on tighter contours also. But once the tournament started, I mean, it was kind of just like a full blown spawn. Like everything was just
changed,
everything just went up there and started spawning. Yeah.
Yeah. So I fished the Splash the weekend before you guys started practicing, and I saw it change like Friday chatterbait nonstop. Like they were eating it pretty good.
Yep.
And then Saturday about 10 o'clock in the morning it quit. And okay. So pull up shallow, start throwing plastics. Guess what? You start catching fish again. Now we didn't run into very many good ones. The one good one we ran into came on a swim bait about. Nobody can see my hand, so I'm holding it up. But about 8 inches long.
8-inch long.
Yeah,
bait,
big hard bait. I think it's called a Tiny Clash or something like that.
Yeah.
My buddy caught a 659 Sunday morning on that on a hump. But for the most part, the moving bait bite really kind of the brakes started coming on, and they're like, oh, if it gets slick and sunny, these boys are fixing to whack them. And then the flood and rains came. Would you have ever picked? I would never pick against Dustin Connell to win any of them.
Sure.
But would you have ever picked it to be won the way it was?
No. I mean, when the event started, I told a couple of my buddies, I was like, I'll be practicing stuff from, above the BB Comer all the way down to Honeycomb, because I don't really know exactly where it'll be won. I mean, there's always fish. I tell people there's always fish everywhere on Guntersville, and it's kind of true. There kind of are fish always everywhere. So it makes it a challenge of where to spend your time and look. Obviously I've got areas that I like to fish more than others, but no, that was like very low on my list of things to think about winning. In fact, I don't know if I would have ever even put that on. Like if somebody asked me 10 different techniques or approaches that could be good on that, event, I don't think that would have ever even been in my top 10. I've fished up there. I've caught fish up there. I've had some decent bags up there, but I've never seen the numbers that he was producing like that.
It was the perfect storm.
Yeah.
You had the rain that kicked the current up. You had the crappy, cloudy weather, and all those things scream tail race. Now, Guntersville's tail race doesn't get that until now, it didn't get that much pressure or that much advertisement, so to speak. But
Sure.
below Wheeler Dam, Pickwick, that stuff. Those are the days, right?
Yeah.
And
well, I don't know. I see that's the type of fishing that I never grew up doing. So, I mean, for me, like I'm still learning all that stuff. And so if you tell me that, Pat, now I know. And Connell, appreciate it.
Crappy weather.
Yeah.
Crappy weather and current is a below a dam kind of thing,
Okay.
and I haven't done a lot of it, but the guys that I know that have said, the crappier the weather, the better those bites are.
Really interesting.
And particularly for the smallmouth.
Yeah.
Because that's what he caught a lot of that last day. There's a lot of smallmouth. And it wasn't like he was just catching numbers. He caught some grown ones.
Big ones. Yeah. His average size was solid.
He had some 5-pound smallmouth up there. And I've never even caught a smallmouth on Guntersville. So I'm standing there going, well, of course, I don't go up that way.
Sure.
If I could go down the road here and fish below Guntersville if the ramp wasn't. Is it even open again?
Are you talking about the one that's
dam?
right at the dam?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was closed. They were working on it, I think.
Oh, as far as I know, it's open, but they may have closed it. I'm not sure.
They need to redo it because it's terrible.
You're not talking about the one that's in that little cove. They're working on one that's...
This is on the river below the dam, like between here and Honeycomb.
Okay. Yeah. There's so between Dittos and the dam, they were working on one that was back in that old, like little bay. You know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about. I don't know how
it's
you get
not
to that. No,
not that one.
No. Like if you leave, like you live down the road here in New Hope.
You're just talking about the one right at the dam, like where there's no dock. It goes straight down.
Yeah, there's a big concrete wall right there.
I don't know.
I was told that had been closed and they were working on it.
Maybe they are.
Because it's right there on the river. But anyway, back to Guntersville.
Yeah.
I'm still that morning when I saw him up there, and I was watching, and the weather was like it was, and I'm like, he might actually whack those, and of course,
straighter,
and he was fishing just like smallmouth river rock stuff,
just rocks.
So there's a lot of folks that were probably watching that going, dadgummit, that's been exposed now, and there goes my favorite fishing hole. So
I'm sure of it.
I have some buddies that like to fish up that way a lot in the winter. And he's like, man, you hardly ever see a boat, and you'll see a duck hunter running around up there or something, but not a lot. So here we are, a week past Redcrest. Is that about right? Something
a little over that.
You're glad to be going fishing again on Guntersville.
Oh, it's been so nice. It actually has felt weird. I've been on and off for 3 years because I had a BPT event there where I finished runner up to Wheeler a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And then I had a pro circuit event. I think it was either the year before or the year before, like 2 years prior to that, where I was, I finished up in the top 10 in it as well. And both of those events were no information for an entire year. So I've had, since I've moved here, basically half the time that I've lived here, I haven't been able to converse with people about the lake. So,
hey man, good to see you. Can't talk to you.
Yeah. Hey man, I know I work with Waterfront here and I want to spend time in here and hang out, but sorry, I can't hear about your trip on the lake today. It's painful because I want to be able to engage, and that's who I am. And that's kind of how I share my passion, is engaging with people and chatting. And so I'm really happy to be able to get back out there and walk into the, Waterfront GTO and actually be able to like chit chat with people and not feel guilty for just standing in there potentially hearing something I'm not supposed to hear.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, I can't imagine. So, your world's changed a little. I think I had you on here the very first year we did this, and this is our, I don't even know, fourth or fifth season, I think, that I've been doing this. And you were, I think, you qualified for the Bass Pro Tour that year. So now we have the guy that just finished Redcrest. He's got his own rod line.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had some pretty good success over the last couple of years. So
yeah. So I jumped on board with Duckett. We've got a few rods in the Pro Series line that have been doing well. I'm loving them. I mean, I'm catching fish like crazy on my 7.3 medium heavy, which I use for my chatterbait and all kinds of stuff. Helped design the sway minnow, put in a lot of my, thoughts and energy, and we're redesigning the packaging currently because I'm like still not happy with it exactly. I'm like, man, I want it exactly like this. I want to make sure that the tail stays straight, because it's all those little nuances are really important when it comes to throwing a little minnow bait. You want to make sure that thing is not slightly bent or kinked, because it's a very subtle action lure.
That's why they package them in those clamshells.
That's it.
I don't know if I bought a sway minnow yet, but a lot of your baits like those are packaged in a very
tight clamshell. Yeah,
keep them
exactly. And so that's what we're coming out with. We're soon to release a 6-inch version of our bait, and it's going to release immediately in a double-sided clamshell, the 6-inch will, and then the 4.5 and the 375 will soon progress into that packaging once we filter out what we currently have. But man, I'm really happy with that. I'm glad we're addressing things like that. I mean, like I said, I'm kind of a little nitpicky, kind of perfectionist when it comes to this stuff. Like, I've always been a bait tinkerer. So like, when I see something that's not quite 100% how I'd want it, I'm like, man, let's do this. Let's do this. And Duckett's been really good about working with me and recognizing like, hey, yeah, we should adjust this. Yeah, we should adjust that. And so it's been great, man. They live right, or they work right down the road there.
Right
in Guntersville.
I mean, it's probably 15 minutes from your house. So
I jump in the truck, I'm at their office, and we can negotiate things, talk about stuff, figure out exactly how we want things, tweak with the bait, tweak with the packaging. It's been phenomenal. It's been great. That's been a big deal. Obviously, the Bass Pro Tour, I've had a couple of good seasons. Haven't had a crazy season yet. This year was starting out really, really good. And then I had Lake Murray, which was the worst tournament I've had in my 7 years of doing this. But, nothing in my career has ever really come easy. I've always kind of had to go through ebbs and flows of things.
That's life.
And, 100%. And, I know, but you look at some of these guys, you look at like Fisher and Aya, I'm not saying Fisher doesn't put in the work.
Oh,
he
yeah.
does.
Yeah. He won a Toyota the other day.
Yeah. Hayden Marb. I really like these guys, but, I still haven't won an event like that before. I've worked my rear end off, know? So, I'm not saying that they don't deserve it. 100% do. They work really, really hard. But for me, it's always been kind of like ups and downs. It's like I was on this high pedestal. I was in first in AOI, I had just back-to-back top 10. And then it's like, hold on one sec. Let me suck you back down to reality here. Dead last, You
were dead last.
I was dead last at Lake Murray. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Went from leading the points, 3rd place and a 7th place, 3rd on Lake Conroe and 7th on the Harris Chain. And then I followed it up with dead last. So,
wow.
Just how it goes, though. That kind of leveled me back down.
Redcrest, you came in above average. Had a good week on your home lake. So
exactly.
I think we were talking before we started. I think you're going Chickamauga, Nickajack. They're going to let you lock through.
So the way they're doing that is it's going to be 2 days on Chickamauga for qualifying rounds, and then the knockout and championship round will be on Nickajack. So
clarify something for me there. 2 days on Chickamauga.
Correct.
Right. First day, scope. Second day, no scope.
Scope is allowed throughout the entire event, but only for one period.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So you're thinking invitational rules, which is
okay. Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of hard to follow.
So it's one period, but it's every day. You can pick your one period.
Exactly. Yeah. So it could be in the morning, midday, afternoon.
I think they got it right. I've watched some of that, and I think because some people are just grumbling. Everybody's going to bitch about something, but I think it makes it a little more interesting.
I do too. I like it on the water as a competitor because it's like I enjoy the technology, but I also grew up without it. Right. I grew up just fishing, and I love the idea of just trying to figure it out, based off of feel. Mm-hmm. And for 2/3 of our day, that's how it, it goes from scoping to hoping,
Right. Right.
And it really does. Whether you like forward facing or not, it really does showcase how effective that technology is.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're a fan of it or not, it's a like, wow, like if you are allowed this technology and the fish are in a place where you can catch them with it, the numbers just go.
It's incredible.
It's insane.
And I'm just barely average with it, but there are a group of guys, and I'm going to include you in that group of guys that are pretty damn good with it. Wheeler and Connell, of course, both those guys were kicking people's butts before that came around, right?
Sure.
So, it's kind of like when the Alabama rig came out. You weren't here yet, but like when the Alabama rig came out here, people grumbled about that some. But the people that were already winning, they still won. They just won bigger.
They just caught bigger fish.
They just won more.
Yeah.
It did level the field to some extent. You got your people, and Fisher and I is one of them. Now I'm going to say Fisher probably knows how to fish without it just as well as he does with it because the kid spent so much time on the water.
100%. Yeah. Grown up on the water.
Grown up on the water, technology, YouTube videos. mapping has all shortened the learning curve that my almost 50-year-old butt took 30 years to learn stuff, and now these kids could blow me out of the water. Right?
It's amazing, yeah.
And, I mean,
really
and the high school fishing is starting. I mean, they're kids. I mean, they're learning things that that's the reason I don't fish tournaments much anymore. I have to work. I can't keep up. I can't. I mean, there's no substitute for time on the water. Period.
Yeah.
I mean, you were out fishing when you couldn't go to Guntersville. You were still fishing somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because there's no substitute for time on the water.
No, trying to get out there, trying to learn. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. I mean, if you don't consistently have a drive to try to get better, somebody's gonna kick you in the butt and leave you behind.
Absolutely, they are. So here we are, April 16th, I think today. What do you expect on Guntersville, say, the next 2 weeks?
Oh man, I suspect the fish to probably have another wave of spawners move up. It seems like right now we're kind of on the tail end of a wave that came up, and it seems to me like there's still a few fish up there bedding, but it's not as good as it was, like, let's say, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And I don't think the spawn is done by any means, because I've caught spawning bass on Guntersville into, I never really target them much later than May, middle of May, but I do catch fish on bed in May. So I would assume we're going to look at another wave moving up at some point. Right now our nights have been getting a little bit colder. The water kind of got back down into the 60s. It was up into the high 60s, low 70s during Redcrest. I think if we see that water stabilize back into that, range, like that low 70 range, I think we'll get another wave of fish that push. We're going to have the bluegill start spawning. I've already saw signs of bluegill bedding in one area. So I think they're going to start pushing up there pretty heavily here in the next couple weeks. I think with that being said, we're going to start seeing, the offshore bite, shell bar bite, main river ledges, that kind of thing start to come back into play. Hopefully that bite's going pretty good in May, which it usually is. We've got the Toyota Series coming up, and I would assume that'll be a pretty big player. Everybody's probably going to be sharing about 30 offshore places.
I was about to say, the lake gets awful small when that happens.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, and people turn into, but they do some things that aren't very nice sometimes.
No, it's cutthroat. I mean,
it is. And
it's unfortunate, but it just kind of is what it is, and it's one of those things where it's all about it's all about how you handle it on the water, and I'm not the type of person that's going to go pull up on somebody and, hey man, can I sit right next to you and fish the same school of fish? Like, I'd much rather drive around and go, hey, there's nobody sitting where I think there's a group of fish over there. Let me go check it out. I'm that type of guy. I'm going to run around. I'm going to look for a place where nobody's at. I'm not going to, and I mean, if you can't get on anything in a tournament and there's a guy sitting on your favorite, offshore hole, like I said, go over there and ask, hey man, like, I know what's going on here. Is there any way we can cordially work out approaching these fish here together? Like, can I sit over here? Can you sit over here? Cause like, I've competed in major events, on Chickamauga. I remember one from 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, it was a ledge fishing tournament, with fish still shallow being caught, but the majority of the fish were out deep, out offshore.
If you're going to win, you're going to be doing that.
That's right. And we're all fishing for $100,000, and we were all talking, making sure everybody was okay with where everyone was at. I'm sure there was some little stuff going on that wasn't that way, but when I was in areas when there were multiple boats, everybody was chit-chatting. Okay, hey man.
I remember that event. There were some areas where you'd see like 15 guys. I mean, it was a cluster like that.
Oh, it's crazy. Ultimately, though, like, I mean, you just kind of have to lock into what you're doing, and as long as my biggest thing, as long as I feel okay comfortably, like I'm not like encroaching on somebody else and they're okay with me being there and I'm okay with them being there and we all can kind of get along, it works out. But man, the lakes do get so small. The Tennessee River fish is tiny when the fish get out deep.
Well, because they're not everywhere.
No.
And like you said, 30, I mean, maybe more than 30, but I mean, but really.
Maybe like 50 places on the whole lake out deep where they get good.
Good.
Yeah. And the thing is one day it'll be this place that's good, and then the next day it'll be this place. And I think that kind of is what maybe in the past has separated me in offshore fishing tournaments, because I've fished quite a few offshore events and finished pretty well in most of them. And I just know a lot of little nuanced places like, hey, they may not be here this day, but I'm going to keep checking it. I'm going to keep checking it. I'm going to keep checking it because they're likely to show up, Like,
I preferred the places that there were 10 fish versus 100, because a lot of people will drive right by the 10 to go fish 100. And But now they all stand out so much. There's a boat on every one of them most of the time, particularly on Saturday.
It seems that way. Yeah, if you can get out there on a Wednesday, you're going to crush them. But if you're out there on the weekend,
but dude, it's crowded on Wednesdays now.
Oh, I know.
There's too many of you pros living around here that go out there like a lot, and I'm not blaming you. I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, don't hate the player,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of guides, pros, and tourists.
Sure.
For that matter. I mean, when the weather. I mean, particularly March, April, and May. You don't drive by an empty boat ramp on Guntersville. I don't care if it's Monday or Sunday.
No.
And, I mean, they're out there. But you haven't seen any shad spawn starting yet?
I had not, but I have a buddy of mine that told me he had seen a little bit of a shad spawn going on. I would assume that's going to start to be picking up here pretty soon.
That 70-degree water mark is kind of normally the deal.
Yeah.
Of course, we've been there 3 times this year.
I know.
And then it just keeps coming back down.
I know. So, I think the next time, I mean, because I think today's a cooler day, and then it's supposed to predict to get a little bit warmer for the next
86. It was real hot Monday. Then we had that little deal blow through, but it's supposed to be like 86 on Saturday.
Yeah, I would highly predict in the next couple of days a pretty big shad spawn across the whole lake to start picking up.
There's been a few years it seemed like the shad started spawning before the bass were ready for them, because I found a lot of places that there was a good shad spawn going,
but there's
and
no
they
bass.
Were safe, nothing eating them. Yeah,
I've seen that before as well.
Yeah,
it's like sometimes I think there's so much of it, there's so much bait that the fish just it's like not only do you have to find the elusive, mysterious shad spawn,
right?
Some people are like, a shad spawn, what the heck? Because I've never even seen that before. For anybody watching that doesn't know how to find a shad spawn, I can't really help you. No, I'm just kidding. No, you want to look early in the morning. You want to get out there before the sun gets up. That's ideal. Low light. They like to spawn, I guess, in the dark.
It is a night thing.
Yeah, it's a night thing. So it kind of is what you're finding in the morning is actually just like the carryover of the spawn from the night before. Mm-hmm. So anyone watching that doesn't know that, you're going to want to get out there first thing, crack of dawn. You're going to be looking around boat docks, shallow reeds, anywhere hard cover is present, because shad are an adhesive spawner. So they actually adhere their eggs to things, and that's how they spawn. So you'll see them flicking around boat docks or logs or anything like that. You look for white birds on the bank, and you can catch them pretty good.
So pre-eelgrass,
yeah, there
was typically a pretty good shad spawn on the river channel. Like, let's say, from like Goose Pond to Waterfront, Pine Island, all the old riverbank out there, you'd have a lot of grass and stuff out there.
Yeah.
And we still do, but it's different. And now, believe it or not, and I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I've seen shad spawns on the floating mats of eelgrass that are going down the middle of the river.
Oh, wow.
That is it. Watch one day. I mean, you'll.
Yeah.
And now I haven't paid attention to it since I've really gotten where I understand scope. We probably ought to go fish it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, those shad may have been hanging up under. You may be able to throw your little minnow over there and catch one. But
yeah. No, I mean, I've heard of guys catching them flipping out of the mats that are floating.
I mean, you think like in the ocean, they find something floating in the middle of the river or the middle of the ocean, they catch fish out from there.
That's a big deal, yeah. It's just like a little shade.
But we didn't know that the fish did that till here the last several years. But now the shad spawn used to be pretty good on ridges and humps and grass related, where we had the hydrilla and stuff. Now I don't know.
So the shallow bars you're talking talking about, like the 6 to 4 foot deep bars that have like the grass that grows.
I can't tell you, come out of Goose Pond and go down the river right down through there. I can't tell you 20 years ago how many you'd catch on a spinnerbait down through there.
Oh my gosh!
In early May.
Yeah.
And because a lot of those fish spawn out in those, on those flats, but they just pull right out of there. But the timing seems to be off. And like you said, I really think the shad spawn itself has gotten shallower.
You think it's because that grass out there isn't growing as tall this time of the year?
I think so. I really do.
Interesting.
And I mean, I remember being out there mid-May. Uh-huh. You're running a spinnerbait, and grass is 2 foot under the surface. And
you can almost see like little pieces of grass every once in a while. Yeah.
Of course, a spinnerbait and eelgrass don't get along real well anyway.
No.
It wraps up over in the swivels. So.
Nothing in eelgrass gets along that well, really.
The fish.
Yeah.
But no, it has changed.
Interesting.
It has changed some. You'll still find them in places like that from time to time, but I think that a lot more of it does happen in those shallow areas that you were talking about. But I didn't used to do that. That's not where I looked for it. I went to the river.
That's interesting that you say that. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's part of the reason why I've struggled to find it on that lake.
Well, I haven't found it anywhere in a while.
Really?
I mean, the last good one I remember was around some of the islands in Allreds, which was shallow, close to the bank kind of stuff,
Interesting.
And that's been years ago.
Yeah. The last shad spawn, I was over in, I don't remember exactly where I was. I think it was in Arkansas, and I saw a crazy shad spawn. They were up real shallow up against the bank, but of course there was no grass there. So they're right. Spawning around it, anything and everything they can see on the bank, boat docks and whatnot. But
a good shad spawn bite back in the day could have really been one of those things where you could really catch a really good bag of typically spawned out fish in the first hour.
Yeah.
Now on these cloudy days, sometimes that bite will go on longer. But the way I always found it is you'd go throw a spinnerbait out there when your blade starts feeling funny. They're running into it. Yeah, you'll start to, and that's and I haven't gotten to go much since the splash for various reasons. But I knew it was coming. Now you can throw swim bait or whatever. The chatterbait's a little harder to tell, but if you start looking at your bait when it's coming back, you'll see 4 or 5 of them following it back.
That's right.
And that means love is in the air for the little shad.
Yeah.
So, but if there's a good offshore bite somewhere, you get your butt kicked by that. So it's hard to compete with the offshore schools when they get there.
It is.
I mean, even though it's a zoo, it's hard to compete.
The concentration of the caliber of fish is just what's hard to compete with. You've got such a high concentration of large fish. I mean, you may only fool like 3%, or 4% or 5%, it's a really low number that you're actually fooling or getting to bite, but you're throwing at fish that are somewhere between 3 and 7 pounds, basically just waiting for one of them to make a mistake.
And now they're there. Like,
that's it.
It's not just idling over and they're kind of, now you're like, okay, that thing came up and sniffed my bait and turned around and swam off.
Yeah, and you can hit your anchor lock, your boat doesn't move, and you sit down, you re-rig your next color or your next, jig head size or whatever it is, or you put your worm on there and you throw right back in the exact same place. There's no like, oh man, there's no drifting off anymore. There's really a lot less guesswork when it comes to fishing offshore.
So I know you were an early adopter on the minnow.
Yeah.
Because I think, and I may have been wrong on the year you were here, because I remember when you were here, we didn't talk about this on the air, but you were catching them doing something that you didn't really say a whole lot about.
Yeah.
But I know what it was. So, I mean, you were shaking a minnow. And it was before everybody knew about the Sakamata shad and some of those type things. And you had some wintertime stuff figured out, and you've played with that game for, 3 years now, I guess?
Yeah, a few years, yeah.
Do you know, I mean, you're a very technical person when it comes to your fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe size, weight, hit makes a big difference on catching those fish sometimes?
Yeah, it's like the most important thing when it comes to those fish. So my whole thing with jig heads, so it can either equal speed of your bait, like weight equals speed. Like the heavier the weight, the faster your bait's going to be moving, because you're having to, account for that weight to keep that bait moving, because if you stop moving it, it's just going to want to keep on sinking. So weight equals speed, but it also equals how deep you can effectively fish it. So like, let's say I'm targeting a group of fish in 20 feet of water. I'm probably not going to pick up an 1/8 ounce jig head to get down to those fish, my first, pickup, because it's going to take me a lot longer to get there, especially if there's current. It's just going to be a lot less efficient. 1/4 ounce, it's going to get down there quicker. A 3/8, it's going to get down there even faster. But you'll throw a 3/8 ounce jig head with, sway minnow or Sakamata shad or a Z2, whatever minnow style bait you want to put on there. You throw it out there with a heavy head on these fish that are in, let's say 20, and it'll get down there. You'll see it. The fish respond. They start following it. But you're having to keep your bait moving so quickly just to keep it above these fish, because that's the key. You got to keep the bait above them. Like if you get it down at their level or below them, you're very seldomly going to get bit. It's almost always got to be above their head. So you've got to, watch them, and they'll tell you most of the time. Like if you throw your 3/8 ounce jig head with your 5-inch minnow out there, or whatever minnow you like, whatever it is, and you're shaking it over those fish and you're watching them, and they all start, kind of coming up, looking at it, and then going back down. something's not quite right. You know, and I'm not saying they're always going to bite, because that's seldomly do they bite. You throw out 100 fish and you may catch 4, I mean, that's pretty realistic. Some days it's not like that. Some days you may catch 15, maybe your percentages go up, but more often than not, especially on Guntersville, they get fished for so much. They see so many different things. Your percentage is pretty low on how many fish you actually convert into biters. But just based on their behavior and what you can see on the screen, you can make minor adjustments. And I would say more so than color on a minnow, weight jig head is more important. Like, I would say that the weight of your head is more important than the color of your bait. I think that just based on the speed at which it fishes. Like, if you have 1/4 ounce weight and you get it to those fish and you're able to hover that thing and the current's just right and it's just kind of floating there through the water, that's, primo. Like,
get it right over there and just keep it,
just almost float
them a little bit,
just float it over them, but I've also seen it where they want it moving fast. I've thrown a 3/8 ounce head in shallower water and had to work it quick and watch them go crazy and eat it like that. I've also seen it to where you've had to throw an 1/8 ounce in 20 feet of water, and an 1/8 ounce in 20, you're sitting there waiting for a long, long, long time, and you're like,
because the wind blow.
If you overshake your bait and you don't see it on the screen before you know it, the thing's only 5 feet under the surface, and you're like, man, I'm not going to catch one up here. Like, I got to be more patient than that. So it can be very deliberate. You can have to sit there and like really be deliberate with your presentation and make sure that that bait's down. It gets very nuanced, but I would say more than anything, weight size is key, like extremely key.
So it's not even necessarily seasonal. It's just, I mean, it could be February, it could be June. It just depends on the day, what the fish want.
That's it. Like, I mean, if you want to really truly adapt that style of fishing, the reality of it is you probably need 3 rods with different weight jig heads or different size baits at all times, tied on. If you're going to try to use forward facing sonar with a minnow, it's not just like a chatterbait where you can tie on a 1/2 ounce jackhammer and put your favorite trailer on there and just go chunking around and you're going to catch them when they're biting a chatterbait. I mean, the 1/2 ounce jackhammer, it's like the staple, I mean, you can't go wrong. But it's different. I mean, I would say more than anything, 3/16 or 1/4 ounce on the jig head with the little shake and a minnow deal. It's like my starting place, 3/16 or 1/4. But I'm not afraid to go lighter and I'm not afraid to go heavier. Like,
what pound line you normally run?
See, that's a big deal too.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So like your line creates drag. So, the more braid you have, braid is it has floating properties. So braid's going to want to try to keep your bait up a little bit more. Fluoro is a sinking line. So the longer your leader is, the more that's going to want to keep your bait down. The thinner diameter, the more it's going to cut through the water. So I used to throw a lot of 7-pound, 8-pound, light. I had some of my biggest bags last couple of years, like all my 30-pound bags came on 7. Most of them came on 7. I had 33 on Santee.
Dude, I fished for bluegill with 6 line.
I had a 33-pound bag on Santee pre-practicing on a minnow with 7-pound line, but I've started to kind of change a little bit with it. Like, I'll throw a lot more like 12, 10, that kind of stuff. I've even gone as heavy as 16. And the reason that I'll do that is if they're floating really high in the water column, like let's say wintertime when the fish are just kind of hovering around where there's bait fish, you want to throw like something that's going to keep your bait up higher, 3/16, 1/8 ounce jig head. And you might only throw like a 3-foot, 12-pound leader instead of like a 15-foot, 10-pound leader. It's all based on the positioning of the fish. The components do different things, I mean, it's very nuanced, because you don't have a tail, you don't have anything thumping, you don't have anything creating a bunch of action. In fact, it's the opposite of that. It's like the most subtle presentation. So each little thing has a big impact on how it looks in the water. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that there's one right way to do it and there's wrong ways to do it. I think that there's a lot of in between. And I've caught them doing a lot of different stuff on the in between. I don't know what's right.
It sounds like you could have a million different mixes to it. It just depends.
You
on,
can.
you know, I mean, because you could adjust your line size for your weight head and your weight head for your line size, and so to each their own kind of deal.
Yeah.
Now the leader length thing, that's not something I'd really thought about. You know, I normally make one about arm length wide. You know,
every time.
Every time. You know, and same thing I used to do with the Carolina rig when I'm getting ready to make Carolina.
It's like
cut
2.5, 3 feet.
Yeah. I mean, I had extra for my knots, and then I would go about from here to, from the mid chest to the end of your arm for the leader. And I never put a lot of thought into that. So here we are, mid-April. Things are going to change, but be the same for a little while. At the same time, you got the bluegill deal that's going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going fishing just to catch fish for the next 2 weeks, or let's go the next week and a half, next week, tell me the 5 baits you're going to have on.
Okay, so if I'm just going to go out on Guntersville just to try to go get bit, and I don't really care about catching 5, tournament grade fish, like the reality of it is 3-pounders on Guntersville, they don't cut it in tournaments. They're fun to catch. I mean, by all means, like when I'm going
they
out,
might have a tag in them.
They could. I mean, mine was a 264 tag bass, and that 264 was just as welcomed in the boat that day as like an 8-pounder would have been. But no, I mean, really, my advice would probably be, stay in that 4 to 8 foot zone around the grass. If you want to catch them, and I would try to stay, I would really focus on the grass. I mean, the grass is going to be where you're going to have the opportunity to catch the most fish, in my opinion.
Up in pockets mostly, or flats?
Yeah, flats. I mean, I think flats get somewhat overlooked on Guntersville. I think a lot of people fish humps, points, little high spots, kind of the obvious. But the flats are really, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, the grass is going to find a depth where it can grow, and it's just going to flourish, or it's going to try to flourish. The deeper the water, the less likely it's going to get light penetration and grow. So, I mean, anywhere you've got that 4 to 6 feet of water and a lot of it, you're going to have a lot more grass.
Mm-hmm.
Chatterbait and swim worm, like a speed worm, can be really good. Just a weightless Texas rig Cinco. I mean, just cast it out there and just let it sink around in that grass and kind of pop it through the grass and let it settle back through it. I mean, seriously, if it's not windy like crazy out there, you're not fishing that deep. You're only fishing 4 or 5 feet of water. So, I mean, it's not going to take but, 10, 15 seconds for that Cinco to get to the strike zone. A Cinco is really hard to beat, especially if you're just like not really sure how to work the bait through the grass, all that stuff. Texas rig Cinco is super straightforward. Throw it out there. You can almost pop it through there like a fluke or something. Mm-hmm. That's really effective. So I would say a Cinco, I'd say a chatterbait, I'd say a swimming worm, I'd say a spinnerbait, a couple baits you can cover water with, chatterbait, spinnerbait. I feel like the spinnerbait's a little bit better in like that real shallow water where you can see little strands of grass.
Uh-huh.
The chatterbait tends to get bogged down when you can see little strands of grass. You're sitting there ripping, trying to get it to come through. Whereas with a spinnerbait, you could throw it up there and kind of keep your rod tip up and just almost keep him going like, a foot or two below the surface, and he's not bogging down in that stuff. So spinnerbait, chatterbait, Texas rig, Cinco, or worm of any style that you like. I mean, the speed worm is kind of the same as a Cinco, but the cool thing with the speed worm is you can fish it, you can swim it.
It's almost like a little swim bait.
It is. Yeah. It really is. But those would be my top 4. I mean, if I had to add one more in there, it'd either be like a walking bait or a jerk bait or something like that.
I was wondering if you were going to throw a topwater in there.
Yeah, topwater would probably be in there as well. Yeah, walking bait. I like a buzz bait. I like a buzz frog. I like a swim jig, but those are not really like high percentage bite getting baits, I wouldn't say. I mean, you can get bit, you can catch fish on them. If I had to pick one bait that's going to get bit over that grass the best, it'd probably be like a spook junior or just a regular spook, something like that.
Yeah. Well, Jacob, we could talk fishing for another hour.
Oh, easily.
And I really appreciate you coming in here and sharing your insights on Guntersville. I know you're getting ready to go fishing, so I don't want to hold you up much longer. I'm going to go back to work and wish I was going fishing. And anyway, I really appreciate you coming out. Congratulations on good finish at Redcrest and a pretty good start to the year. I remember your social came out and says, well, after a good year, I just dead last. But,
yeah.
But, you got to have the lows to appreciate the highs.
That's right.
So, and I have, I'm pretty confident that the Tennessee River stuff coming up, that we might see your name up there in the top 15 or 20 again, too.
I hope so. I really like the TVA. I cut my teeth here. I call Guntersville home now. And
Right.
I mean, I've spent a lot of time out there, so I'm hoping it all works out good.
Well, tournament-wise coming up, we've got casting and catching, which is full. They filled up a few weeks ago. They capped it at 200. You've got the Battle of the Brands tournament that's coming up. I think it's the day after casting and catching. They're still open. And then there's a Foodland tournament that's a week or two after that. I think they still had a few spots. You can go to the Bass and Big G website, see the calendar on there and see what all's going on, see who's been winning. And until next time, enjoy the floating grass.